So I think to kind of conquer that fear a little bit is think of it kind of on a spectrum. All right. Worst case, what's going to happen? All right. So if you call a certain blitz and there's one play they run, and if they run it against that, what's the worst case scenario? Okay. If that's going to be, worst case scenario, this is best case scenario. Worst case scenario, they gain 10 yards. I can live with that. Or even 20 yards. But best case scenario is we get a turnover. Like they run an RPO and we're robbing that dude and pressuring off the same side. We're going to get a turnover, probably a pick six. Well, I'm going to call that. It's worth the risk. If they run a screen the other way, they're going to get up 10 yards versus a turnover. So that's kind of how I think about it, kind of data driven. Now, if, they run the play you're hoping they run, and you're only going to get them at the line of scrimmage with that pressure. And if they run the perfect play, it's going to be a touchdown. Well, they're probably a better option out there. So it's kind of how we look at it on the spectrum piece of it. But also go back and look at your season. We did it this year for a couple games. We had one coach. I would call out what I'd call, the defense, and I call it what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be gap left right here. They write it down. We go back and see how accurate we were. What I found, I think we did it two and a half games before we got tired of writing it down. I think we're 85% right on run pass. We could base off of tendencies, which is what I got over here. Is just there's different things from our scouting report. 75% right on direction, so left or right, and like 65% right on the actual play they're going to run. So how big of a risk are we really taking when we have a pretty darn good idea of what's coming at us, whether it be down and distance, formation, or all those things combined together? You watch enough film as a defensive coach, I think by the time you get to Friday night, you know what's coming at you before it happens. So my point is roll the dice, take a risk. I think, but to make sure you're prepared and your players are prepared, if you're going to bring a lot of pressure, you got to go kind of through a checklist. And that's what I wanted to go over. First of all, are they a check with me team? Are they going to check a bunch at the line of scrimmage? If that's the case, you got to have a plan to deal with that. I talked about it in the last meeting. If they're, a check guy, have two calls in mind. If I'm going to show this one, and when I show it, they are going to respond by doing whatever it is, and then have the call to beat that ready to go when they do check. And that really frustrates offenses. But you got to have that plan in mind by scouting the play caller. I think too, it's important to understand what is their answer. If you're bringing a lot of pressure, how are they going to respond? So you can get that from film or playing them years past. Some offensive coordinators are screen guys. I think the way you answer that is getting your D-line prepared for the field pressure, to chase them out of the pocket or chase them, those O-linemen out, play man coverage with it, prepare the linebacker that's not blitzing on how he can attack. And I think if they expect screen, the guys that aren't blitzing, if they can expect screen, it's real hard for offensive linemen in high school to block an athlete in the open field, just like it's hard for our D linemen to tackle their best athlete in the open field. Blocking and tackling are the same thing. So that's how we go about it. If they're a screen team, if they're option, run your blitzes into options. So our offensive coordinator is big on, if you blitz them a bunch, you're going to run a bunch of option, and you're not going to have somebody for them. So we blitz, but you have responsibilities in your blitz. So build that in. Some teams will run into your pass blitzes, and you got to kind of, are they going to do that with zone? They're going to do that with a gap scheme and practice how your pass blitz turns into a run blitz when you have a key to it. One thing I showed in the last thing, and I'm not going to get into it too much here, but what's been really good to us as a run stunt, but it can turn into a good pass rush, is a double gap twist to the backside against spread teams. So they're a zone team. We'll slant our threes or our fours away from the back, and then pull or twist him to take the back. It's real good against inside zone if that's coming, but if it ends up being a pass, most high school O lines aren't finding that guy when he twists that far as well. So it's a good two-way go for us there. I said in the last session, but I got this idea this summer. The Mount Union defensive coordinator came out of North Carolina and taught at our Coaches Association clinic. Gave us some good stuff. So we implemented that for this year because it worked out for us pretty well in practice and games. It doesn't work here because our guy can't tackle worth a damn, but it schematically works well. I'll show you from the end zone real quick. So we're doing this again away from the back. Most teams, he's looking at that nose guard for where to fit. He's going to slant hard. He's really actually trying to get to B gap. But by slanting that hard way, now you're going to force the cutback. He's slanting to A gap. So we're getting that, and then he's twisting. We didn't want him to stay on the line of scrimmage, and we want to keep him shoulders square. And as soon as he clears that guy, get up the field and find the back. That's his rule. And by the time he shuffles over here, most of this O-line's coming to him. Happens a lot quicker than you think. And if it's a pass, he knows it by the time he gets there, and he can get up the field and get to the quarterback. So here's how it works out. They actually run zone to us, what we wanted. He twists perfect and then whiffs on the tackle. But that's one of our answers. If we're not sure if it's going to be a run play or a pass play, that's something we like to do as well. Some teams, they got a hot route called off of pressure, especially if we show it. If they're a team that does that, we like to rob with our D lineman, drop a D lineman, or drop a safety down in and try to get a pick, because turnovers are what wins football games. And that is what we're going for, is taking those chances if it's gonna constitute a turnover. So we like the teams that do the hot routes or RPOs. A lot of the same concepts there. We're going to try to steal those with a different backer. So blitz the key, find out who their key is. They're keying the inside backer, blitz him, rob him with the other inside backer or the outside backer. Or if the outside backer is the key, blitz him, rob it with the other backer, rob it with the D lineman, rob it with a safety, and getting them out of doing that. A lot of teams won't RPO us consistently because they don't know who's coming or who's dropping or who's responsible for the guy to throw the football to. So you can't just key one person. And then as soon as a D lineman drops out there and they throw the ball, that quarterback doesn't trust you anymore as a coach. So teams get away from RPOing us. They'll play action us, but not truly RPO us because they don't know what they're getting. Then lower the risk by being prepared leading up to the game. One, make sure it's sound. So like one game this year, we're playing a team that wasn't real good. We let all the assistant coaches draw up a blitz, and they all put $5 in the pot, which one ever got the best result. I was going to call each one time in the game was going to win. It was a good way to teach some of these younger guys what's sound, what's not. And guy that won was the only one that ended up being sound across the board, but it's a good teaching moment for him. But make sure you got contained players on both sides. High school quarterbacks are usually the best athletes on the team, and they will find whatever gap is not accounted for. And then make sure you can cover it. So we do the same thing in the offensive room. We can come up with some crazy routes that will get wide open, but you can't call them if you can't protect it. The defensive equivalent of that is you can come up with some wild blitzes, but you can't call them if you can't cover behind it. So that's our first answer there. And that's what we're going to spend probably the majority of the time talking about, is how you, because you can draw, I think it's pretty easy to draw up some elaborate ways to get your guys free at the quarterback. That part of it is simple and easy. It's hard to cover everyone behind that. So that's what we're going to spend most of our time talking about. But does it and then does the blitz take away what their answer to blitzing is? So that's something that we want to do each week. And then what adjustments on the fly do the players need to make if you call a pass blitz and they run, or if you call a run blitz and they pass? What adjustments do they need to make on the fly, and then practice that? So we will call some pass blitzes in our inside run period so they know how to adjust, because they know run's coming in inside run. Well,